I'm going to age us a little bit here. Back in the day, before cell phones and before all of that, we had these things. We had this thing called the white pages, and my dad used to tell me the more categories you can get your name in the white pages, the more likely you're going to get a phone call. And that seems to be the case with Steve Dorff. You've been a writer, you've been a producer, you've been an arranger, a composer. You've done all of this work in different kind of in the same industry, but different aspects of the industry. So
Hmm.
when the phone rings for Steve Dorff, what are you hoping is on the other line? Are you hoping for writing? Are you hoping for arranging? Or like, is there a certain role that you're hoping for, or just wow, cool,
No,
I get to work today?
no, I'm just grateful that the phone still rings.
Yeah,
Um,
I can
yeah,
imagine.
because the truth is, I love what I do. I'm passionate about what I do, and I also love the variations of of what I've been able to do. It's not just a country song or a pop song or an R&B song or a movie or a theatrical thing or a television show. I've gotten to do pretty much all of it, and it's nice to be able to bounce from one thing to another.
And
I've always said that, no, I'm not just a songwriter. I love. There's nothing I love more than doing a score to a movie and just visualizing a helicopter chase or a love scene or a battlefield chase and coming up with that 3 minute or 5 minute piece of music that underscores whatever that action is.
the reason why I asked that question is because there's a moment in your book where you're at a meeting for the last Boy Scout, and Hank Jr.'s there, and all the people for the movie. And Hank he's just like, nah, dude, I'm not writing that song. I can't do that. And
Right.
then, I mean, Steve Dorff is in the room, so like Hank leaves, and everybody's like, okay, well, it's cool. We still have Steve, but the point I want to make, and the question here from me to you is, once Hank leaves, and now you've gone from perhaps an arranging or producing role to perhaps more of a hands-on thing, where now you're writing the song. In the
Right.
book, you show your excitement over this. So
Hmm.
obviously, arranging and producing you're happy about, but once you get to write, that's a whole different thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and that was a crazy story. Yeah, Hank had seen we had watched the film in a screening room, and Joel Silver, who's a pretty cantankerous producer, you know, um, the beginning of the movie has a football player getting shot and killed during and
One of the coolest hooks ever in a movie, by the way. If you guys haven't seen this movie,
it was a
um,
great
yeah,
opening,
yep.
but Hank he had done Monday Night Football, and he said, I can't represent the NFL and do this movie, and he walked out, and Joel Silver panicked. He said, "What the hell are we going to do here?" And Gary Lamel, who was head of music um, for Warner Pictures, had hired me to produce Hank,
Right.
you know, for the movie. Um, and and Gary said, "Well, Dorff can write a song, you know." And Joel Silver looked at me and he said, "Who the hell are you? Like, what are you doing here?"
Yeah, they thought
He
you were
thought
with
I was
Hank, right?
he thought I was with Hank, and so he was ready to kill me. And I somehow I just said, I'm hearing more of a pop thing anyway. Maybe like the Righteous Brothers or something cool like that. And Joel Silver said, "I love the Righteous Brothers. You know the Righteous Brothers?" I said, "Well, Bobby Hatfield's dead, but Bill Medley is a friend of mine. I've worked with Bill, and he'd be killer on this." And he got all excited, and I called Bettis. I told him, gave him a 25 words or less synopsis of what I needed the song to say. And the next morning, I had a lyric called "Friday Night's a Great Night for Football," and wrote the song. Actually, was funny because I called Bill and I said, "We need to record this like tomorrow." And he said, "Well, when do I learn the song?" I said, "Probably. There's no time for me to demo this. I'll just teach it to you after I write it, if I get it written by tomorrow morning." Because we had a 10 o'clock session. I had already called musicians. I didn't even have the song until I think 6 o'clock in the morning,
Wow.
and went to the session. Bill showed up at 10, and we somehow recorded this song and kind of finished it as we were recording it. It was fun. It
Man,
was fun.
here in the 21st century, 2024, it's difficult to get two, three, four, five, six people on the same page, even with the technology we have, the instant access that we have to other people. But back then, it was different. I would imagine it would be more difficult, not less, to get more people on the same page. Where you're a melodic writer, you somewhat need a lyrical collaborator at times as well. How much of that played a role where you need more people, more of a team, and getting everybody together at a fast pace? Like, was that a
Well, yeah,
problem?
yeah. Well, especially in TV and film. I fortunately I had a contractor who one call, and I would tell her who I wanted on the session, and 9 times out of 10, she'd be able to have that session booked, all the players booked, within an hour or two. And if there was a player that was out of town or sick or was double booked, she'd call me and say, "I can't get so and so. Who else?" And I'd give her maybe two or three alternates, and so uh, she would book the studio, she would book the players. I didn't really have to do anything except show up.
Yeah. So we had our own personal series in Alexas back then. That just
There you go.
yeah,
There you go.
made it happen. Those people were invaluable as well, by the way.
Oh, for sure, for
Yeah,
sure. I had a copyist. I had the luxury of having done this so many times, and I had enough success where I was a safe bet that I was going to get it done.
yeah, and I
And
and
that was one of those. Last Boy Scout was definitely one of those last minute scenarios.
and this again building that reputation as the guy that can get things done quick.
Hmm.
And I think that all goes back to banging your head against your hand in your crib. It's just it's already there. We just have to pull it out now. Now that we
Yeah.
know, now that we know what the situation is, now all I got to do is pull it out. It's super easy, right, for you, but not for the rest of the world. I wanted to talk about scoring a little bit because just by reading your book, you have opened up my senses to how I consume screen media, whether it's TV or movies or film or whatever, or even theater. Really, to be honest,
Hmm.
I never noticed the music, what you call transitionary music from one scene to a next or whatever it is. But one thing you mentioned in the book is how important silence is at times in scoring as well. So,
Hmm.
how do you know when to put nothing?
That's a great question, because I ask myself that almost every project. Because the tendency when you're spotting a movie or a television show, the tendency for a composer is write everything. If the show's 60 minutes long, write 59 minutes of music. But what happens is most people don't really hear the music. They feel it.
Yep,
They sense uh,
the mood.
suspicion
Yep.
or danger in the music. If it's not there, you really know that. Imagine Jaws without the music. Okay, without imagine that shark without that. But most people don't think that way. But to answer your question, there are certain scenes where I will write instinctively. I will start to write something, and instinctively, I know this isn't working. This is gilding the lily. This is overdoing it. What if I just let the scene play with nothing? but silence. And that sometimes is the best music of all.
Yeah.
It just really depends on the scene. It depends on what's come before it and what's going to come after it. So there's a lot of variables there.
Man, I got so many questions, man. There's so many different paths we can take from here. I want to talk about Growing Pains because this was a really long process. 8 years that you were involved with that sitcom, writing the
Did
music,
every
every
episode.
episode, every tone that you hear in that show came from your head. Man, I gotta know because for me, anytime I do something over and over again for a long time, the biggest thing that I'm fighting off is complacency. So, how do you make things new every single week? You're writing a new thing every week for a new episode. How do you avoid the complacency while also replicating the success that you've built up on?
Well, it's a little easier than you would think because with a show like Growing Pains or any show, Spencer for Hire, Murder She Wrote, you have that theme. You have that theme song or that signature melody that uh, so what I try to do is always spin whatever I'm doing off a variation of that theme.
Okay.
So not only does it keep that melody in the person's head, uh, but it pays off when you hear the end title at the end or the main title. So in other words, you're threading that theme in every little incarnation of what the score is. And the same with a movie. If you've got a song, let's say an opening song or an ending song, and if it's a theme for a character, you try to weave those themes throughout the score and variations.
It's
Sometimes you
almost
do it.
circular, right? From beginning to end
Yeah,
on a show. Like you're
yeah,
starting you're starting and ending at the same point. So now you just have to
yeah.
fill in the middle.
Yeah, you have an art. You have a musical arc, which I try to create ahead of time, and I'll have a theme for the different characters. And so when I see that character come on screen, I'll play some variation of their theme.
And so 8 years you were part of this project. Is there time for other things? So you're working
Oh,
on this show.
I had five going at the same time. I was
Wow.
Yeah, I had Growing Pains. I had the spin-off, which was just the 10 of us. I had Murphy Brown on CBS. I had My Sister Sam on ABC. No, that was CBS too. I had Spencer for Hire on ABC. Uh, then I picked up Major Dad, Columbo, and Murder She Wrote. Yeah, it was insane.
How do you
It
keep
was
all that straight? Like, how do you not end up with a Growing Pains song in Spencer for Hire?
again, I know what the themes are, and so I just have to remember what I'm doing at the time. But there were times when I found myself stealing from one and putting it in another. But it's okay.
That's
Nobody,
amazing.
nobody, nobody knew but me.
So I grew up in Massachusetts. So my favorite show growing up was Spencer for Hire. I mean, when I
Oh
was
yeah.
very, very young, that was one of my favorite shows. No
Hmm.
idea that I'd be talking to you 40 years later, man. And of course, at the time, didn't know I was listening to you either. So, but yeah,
Right.
Robert Ulrich was a huge, huge. I wouldn't say hero, but somebody I definitely admired, and
Hmm.
I was so upset when he passed away. And
Yeah.
I
So
know he
was
was close to you as well. So
Yeah. We were very close. He was a great friend, and what a great guy, great actor, great person.
yeah,
Gone way too soon. Yeah.
very underrated as an actor as well. I feel just very
Hmm.
underrated.